Hello, BookTube. I have a bunch of new arrivals that I want to show you. New books that are out now or forthcoming that may be of interest to you, maybe of more interest to you than they are to me. It's a large pile. I thought we'd just go through them. I did a large amount of books for my library tour today. I did a huge amount of books for the Prattle today. Here's a huge amount of books for new arrivals today. How many books can one channel take? I don't know. But let's go through these and see what we have. Lots of interesting stuff here. First, we have a mass market paperback. This is coming out at the end of this month. This is yours truly, The Duke, by Amelia Gray, who I have many romance novels by Amelia Gray and really like her. This says Say I Do. Maybe that is the name of the series. And it also has Paul Marin's Cheekbones, which, you don't need much more than that in a romance. Let's see here. Frederica Hale needs a husband, and fast. She's been caring for her deceased sister's 3 young children, and now a childless cousin has petitioned the court for custody. Frederica is powerless to stop her, but having a husband may sway the ruling. The last thing Frederica wants is a hurried-up marriage to a man she doesn't know, much less love, but she'll do it for the children. So when the handsome Duke of Wyatthaven shows up with a proposal, she accepts. He'll help her, and in return, they'll lead separate lives, but the distance cannot keep them from their powerful attraction. Sounds like happy all around. Then we have something. This is coming out in July. Do I have a sheet for this? No, but we can just read about it together. This is M.W. Craven, and this is his new book, Fearless. And it is about a main character who is fearless. He has a neurological problem, so he cannot feel fear. Ben Koenig used to head the U.S. Marshals Elite Special Operations Group. His team hunted the bad guys, the really bad guys, and he could find anyone. Then one day, Koenig himself disappeared. He has been on the run for 6 years. Now suddenly his face is on every television screen in the country and his cover is blown. A woman has gone missing and her father will do anything to find her. He wants Koenig to disappear to discover what happened no matter what the cost. The trail leads him to a small town in the burning heat of the Chihuahuan Desert, where some people have a secret they'll do anything to protect. But Koenig has a secret of his own, a unique condition that makes him unable to feel fear. Now Koenig is coming for them. They should be afraid. So very much Reacher territory here, but you now know that it's coming. Then we have this lovely thing. How wonderful is this? Do I have a sheet for you? No, I do not. All right. Well, we'll read the cover copy. This is a tiny little thing by Mark Hamer called "Spring Rain: A Life Lived in Gardens." It's a delightful little thing. It probably doesn't have a delightful little price. Yeah, this is $35. That's not a delightful little price. This costs $6 to make. But anyway, let's see what we have here. Mark Hamer has always found the answers to life's questions in the natural world, whether as a child watching ants, as a young man living rough in the countryside, or as a professional gardener creating places of calm and restoration for others. She'd make one for me. If somebody set up a garden for me, I might be able to maintain it. You never know. Now in his 60s, he is finally creating a garden for himself at his home in Cardiff. In this beautiful and moving book, he considers what he has learned from the spring of youth to his autumn years, and then reflects on how we reconcile our childhoods with where we end up. So, a marriage of gardening writing and also sort of memoir and life introspection. I've read a few of those and have really enjoyed them, that combination. So, then we have, what is this thing? Do I have a sheet for you? No? No? This comes out in August. This is by Steve Nichols, and it is called Alien Worlds: How Insects Conquered the Earth and Why Their Fate Will Determine Our Future. And the back just has blurbs, but and the front has blurbs. Let's look at a couple of things that we can learn here. So this comes out in August. Life on Earth depends on the busy activities of insects, but global populations of these teeming creatures are currently under threat, with grave consequences for us all. This book presents insects and other arthropods as you've never seen them before, explaining how they conquered the planet and why there are so many of them, and shedding light on the evolutionary marvels that enable them to thrive. Blending glorious imagery with entertaining and informative science writing, this book takes you inside the hidden realms of insects and reveals why their fate carries profound implications for our own. So, there you go. Alien Worlds, a book about insects. Let's go right along with the gardening one. Then we have, who is this? This author is Eugene Vodolazkin, and a lot of you will know this author because he had a strange hit of a book called Loris. There's a very distinctive look to it. And this is his follow-up to that. This is a novel called A History of the Island. Let's see here. In this novel, described by critics as a coda to the author's best-selling Loris, monastic chroniclers dutifully narrate events they witness. Quests for power, betrayals, civil wars, plagues, droughts, invasions, and revolutions. The entries mostly seem objective, but at least one monk simultaneously drafts and hides a true history, in quotes, to be discovered centuries later. And why has someone snipped out a key prophecy about the island's fate? These chronicles receive commentary today from an elderly couple who are the island's former rulers. Prince Parfeni and Princess Xenia are truly extraordinary. They are now 347 years old. Eyewitnesses to much of their island's turbulent history, they offer sharp-eyed observations on the changing flow of time and their people's persistent delusions. Why is the royal couple still alive? And this comes out in early May. So I got a finished copy, but I got a finished copy fairly early because that's still a ways off. Still got April to go through. Then we have another May book. This is by Tanya Branigan. This is Red Memory, The Afterlife of China's Cultural Revolution. Once again, we are talking about some really good American edition covers. Don't really know what's going on there, but I'm not complaining, mind you. What have we got here? Now, this comes out in early May, but the sheet does me no good at all, so we will read from the book we got here. It is impossible to understand China today without understanding the Cultural Revolution, so the author writes. During this decade of Maoist fanaticism between 1966 and 1976, children condemned parents, students condemned teachers, and as many as 2 million people died for their supposed political sins, while tens of millions were hounded, ostracized, and imprisoned. Yet in China, this brutal and turbulent period exists, for the most part, as an absence. Official suppression and personal trauma have conspired in national amnesia. This book uncovers 40 years of silence through the stories of individuals who lived through the madness, deftly exploring how this era defined a generation and continues to impact China today. The author asks, what happened to a society when you can no longer trust those closest to you? What happens to the present when the past is buried, exploited, or redrawn? How do you live with yourself when the worst is over? And this has a weird blurb on the back. Evan Osnos, the author of Wildland, which is a book that I really liked, has a blurb here that publishers send these books ahead of time to people, and they hope for blurbs. They don't coerce them. And this, as a result, and because this was not done for money, this book isn't out yet, so this is not an excerpt from a review that's run. Technically, it means that the author read the thing and gave a blurb of its own for the cover, and this blurb is pretty astounding. Evan Osnos writes, Branigan's prose is masterful and crystalline. It feels as if Joan Didion turned her powers of observation on China. That's some pretty high praise to fill. We shall see. It's a May release. Then we have, this is out already. I don't think I have any kind of a sheet on this. But this is the lovely new edition from Everyman's Library. James Weldon Johnson's book, The Autobiography of an Excolored Man. Not a long thing at all, but a classic. Rediscovered classic of the Harlem Renaissance. It came out originally without the author's name on it, but then it was brought out with his name on it when the Harlem Renaissance was in full swing. And this is the story of a man who can so-called pass as white. And it's amazingly good. It has a couple of scenes in it that are just heavyweight stuff, just amazingly great. It's had 1 million editions. Now it's in Everyman Library. Then we have something that's right up Steve's alley. This does not come out until May. Do I have a sheet on this? Yes, I do. So do we have a date on this? This comes out on May the 2nd. This is by Carl Anthony, and this is Camera Girl, the coming of age of Jackie Bouvier Kennedy. This is up to her marriage, I would guess. Let's see here. This book brings to cinematic life Jackie's years as a young single woman trying to figure out who she wanted to become. Chafing at the expectations of her family and the societal limitations placed on women in that era, Jackie pursued her dream of becoming a writer. This book is set primarily during the years of 1949 to 1953, when Jackie was in her early 20s, and the book recounts in heretofore unrevealed detail the story of her late college years and her early adulthood as a working woman. where she worked for the Washington Times Herald as the camera girl, where she would film herself asking strangers on the street some thought-provoking question, with a big clunky camera. So it was, in order to do it, she wrote a weekly column. She wrote, I think it was a daily column, a camera girl column from those interviews. She worked them up into interviews, and the camera wasn't easy. It wasn't like a cell phone or even a Polaroid. It was a big deal to do, which means that if you were going to do camera girl, if you were going to be the paper's camera girl, you needed bucket loads of charisma. You needed to be able to stop a stranger on the street and make that encounter work while you were fumbling with your equipment, and get enough material out of that person so that you could write a column about it. I'm hoping that her time as an avid reader and a working journalist is given a lot of territory in this book. That would be great. This comes out in early May. And it's a Steve book because it's, the stereotypical line that my old friends have been using forever: dead Romans, dead Kennedys, and dogs. Then this next one, this next one comes out in March. This is probably out already in your bookstore. This is disturbing. This is a disturbing book. I will try to position it so that it does not block the beam, but this could be in your bookstores already. This is by Paco Calvo, and it is called Planta Sapiens, The New Science of Plant Intelligence. In this book, Paco Calvo is a cognitive scientist, and he's the director of MINT, Minimal Intelligence Lab at the University of Murcia. And in this book, he shares what he's learned about the intersection of plant biology and neuroscience. He explains why plant behavior and signaling should be considered signs of intelligence, signs that we miss because we haven't been taught how to look for them. Some surprising discoveries include that plants can be put to sleep with anesthetics, despite not having lungs. Plants make their own melatonin. Plants exhibit a number of cognitive traits, among them communication, kin recognition, memory, and mimicry. Plants exhibit the ability to make decisions, anticipate events, forage, compete, and assess risk. Neurotransmitters such as acetylcholine, glutamine, dopamine, histamine, noradrenaline, serotonin, and G-aminobutyric acid are found in plants. Plant cells resemble neurons in many other aspects, responding electrically to many different environmental factors. Neurotransmitters are found in organisms that do not have nervous systems or brains. Plants may have their own personalities, and domesticated and wild plants behave differently. The author suggests that plants may have their own unique form of sentience or awareness. Further, there is probably a wide diversity of levels of sentience among plant species and individuals that we might have been able to measure in future courtesy of plant PET and MRI scans. I'm going to put a plant in an MRI, along with other non-invasive techniques. This book is a unique and groundbreaking work that marries neuroscience, botany, ecology, and environmental activism. In his examination of plant sentience, the author delivers a powerful argument for devoting the same level of curiosity, respect, and preservation to the plant kingdom that we have rightfully reserved for animals and human beings. And there goes veganism. There goes, if plants can feel, if they have relationships, then they can mourn. If they have any kind of sentience, then they can anticipate and worry. If they can be traumatized by seeing their relatives die, and if they can experience trauma themselves by being threatened, then it's no more ethical to eat them than it is to eat a pig. This could be a bomb shell going off here in this book. I haven't read it yet. It comes out this month, but I never got a copy until just recently. So, what happens? What happens if plants anticipate, suffer, worry? What happens if all the reasons why so many vegans have given up animal products also applies to plants? Then what? Then what do you do? That still leaves a kind of a menu that you could create for yourself, of food that is nutritionally sufficient, that involves neither plants nor animals. But anyway, if you can find the rudiments of sentience in plants by redefining how you look for it, then where can't you find it? This is going to be fascinating to read. It's going to be one of the things that I read first from the pile that we're dealing here, and we're almost done. We're almost finished with this pile. This next one, this is a finished copy. When do you come out? We have a date on this. This is from the MIT Press. Very thought-provoking stuff. Okay, this comes out on March 28th, so this still has a week to go. This is by Peter Baldwin. Again, I don't want to block the bean. This is by Peter Baldwin. It's called Athena Unbound. Why and how scholarly knowledge should be free for all. Open access, that is known throughout this book just by the letters OA, could one day put the sum of human knowledge at our fingertips. But the goal of allowing everyone to read everything faces fierce resistance. In Athena Unbound, Peter Baldwin offers an up-to-date look at the ideas and histories behind OA and unpacks the controversies that arise when the dream of limitless information slams into the entrenched interests in favor of the status quo. In addition to providing a clear analysis of the debates, Baldwin focuses on thorny issues such as copyright and ways to pay for free knowledge. He also provides a roadmap to what would make OA economically viable, as well as a result advanced one of humanity's age-old ambitions. The author addresses the arguments in terms of disseminating scientific research, the history of intellectual property and copyright, and the development of the university and research establishment. As he notes, the hard sciences have already created a funding model that increasingly provides open access, but at the cost of crowding out the humanities. The author proposes a new system that would shift costs from consumers to producers and free scholarly knowledge from the paywalls and institutional barriers that keep it from much of the world. And the pub sheet goes on to say, this book is open access. And the price printed on the book is $35. If you don't have $35, then you can't read this book. And I would be willing to bet that, who's the author again? Peter Baldwin would see you in court if you copied and pasted the whole text of this from an ebook and put it on Amazon under your own name. I'd be willing to bet he'd see you in court. So yeah, I can't wait to read this and see what it has to say about the subject of open access knowledge, about whether or not, what kinds of knowledge want to be free and under what conditions. I have to assume that Aaron Swartz is in this book. I have to assume that he is. Actually, let's just check and see. Yes, he's in. Aaron Swartz is in this book, so we'll see. We'll see. This is the author obviously is going to have a lot to say about the intricacies of copyright, because this book is copyright and he's not giving it away. So we'll see. Obvious, that is such an obvious piece of seeming hypocrisy that he has to know about it. It must be the first thing he addresses in the book, and it's coming out later this month, so I will probably read it right away. And then this next one, we'll finish up with this last one. Do I have a sheet for you? No, I don't. I think I mentioned it on this channel before. This is going to be $30, and I don't have a date on it. But this is the 3 treaties of Martin Luther. This is an annotated edition, so a really nice annotated edition. So you get the text, you get a ton of annotations, you get a ton of footnotes, and you get a ton of illustrations all throughout. So really, you could not ask for better than this for the 3 treaties. Let's. I don't have a sheet for this, but let's read just a little bit about it to finish up here. Martin Luther posted his 95 Theses on the church door of Wittenberg in 1517. In the 3 years that followed, Luther clarified and defended his position in numerous writings. Chief among these are the 3 treaties written in 1520. In these texts, Luther tried to frame his arguments in terms that would be comprehensible not only to the clergy, but to people from a wide range of backgrounds. To the Christian nobility of the German nation is an attack on the corruption of the church and the abuses of its authority, bringing to light many of the underlying reasons for the Reformation. The second treatise, The Babylonian Captivity of the Church, contains Luther's sharp criticism of the sacramental system of the Catholic Church. And I have to admit, it's bracing reading. That second one, The Babylonian Captivity, is bracing reading. And then The Freedom of a Christian gives a concise presentation of Luther's position on the doctrine of justification by faith. So this volume is excerpted from the Annotated Luther Series, Volume 1, The Roots of Reform, and Volume 3, Church and Sacraments, to facilitate classroom use and group use. So there is a big project going on, but this is an excerpt from a couple of those volumes put together in one volume with lots and lots of extras. And this is a new translation. Do we have the translator's name? No? The editors are Timothy Wengert, Eric Herman, James Estes, and Paul Robinson. No idea if any of those are actually credited with any of these translations. I'd like to know who did that. Maybe the editors don't consider it important. Okay, but each of the three treaties has its own introduction. This just caught my eye. I think I might have mentioned it on this channel before, but it's catnip to me. Any Reformation studies, you can't study the Reformation without studying Martin Luther. So, but anyway, those are some new arrivals, just to interest you. Quite a few of them out now, and then a bunch more coming out in the spring. So we have 3 treaties in an annotated, heavily annotated and illustrated edition. We have Athena Unbound. Does information want to be free? Some information, and how free? We have Planta Sapiens. Is this the book that is going to drive a bunch of vegans back to eating meat? And what do we do? What do we do about that? A man cannot live on mega stuffed Oreos alone. The Lord knows, I have tried. Then we have Camera Girl. New look at Jacqueline Kennedy, her early years, probably culminating in the marriage to Jack Kennedy. Then we have the Autobiography of an Excolored Man. Really nice. You've got the nice sewn bindings and the cloth bookmark here. A really nice edition of a seminal classic. We have Red Memory by Tanya Brannigan, where she tries to do some sort, it sounds like, some sort of a rudimentary oral history of the Cultural Revolution. In China, there is an enormous cultural history that I believe is ongoing of the Cultural Revolution that I thought was a vast repository of chronicles, of oral chronicles, written, and also a vast array of interviews. Maybe that doesn't exist. Maybe that's an urban myth. I thought that existed. We'll see. I'll learn about it from this book. Then we have A History of the Island, kind of a coda or a sequel to Laurus. We have Alien Worlds, all about insects and the intricacies of their weird worlds. We have Spring Rain, where the author, who had been a professional gardener for other people, finally decides to design a garden of his own, a quiet little meditation, I imagine. And finally, Fearless. I don't know this author, but this is, I believe, introduces the character of Koenig, who is a literally fearless man. And finally, a Regency romance, Yours Truly, the Duke, which will be, it sounds like, a fairly rudimentary marriage of convenience. That we all know how those go in Regency romances, but I like Amelia Gray, so I'm perfectly happy with whatever she does. And there you go. That is it. Those are some new arrivals. More coming every day, so I will amass another pile, and we will do another video. But in the meantime, hope some of these were of interest to you. I will wrap this up for now, and I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.